Okay, so this is going to be the last video for chapter 5. There's a ton more information, but I trust you're reading the chapters and you're getting it. I don't want to get down to that level of minutia in the chapter because the lectures, quite frankly, would bore you to tears, and I want you to be able to breeze through this, okay? So things that drive competitive behavior, awareness, motivation, ability, resource, dissimilarity. Let's talk a little bit about each of those, okay? So when firms have similar resources, similar types, similar amounts of resources, and they're competing against each other in multiple markets, there's a high degree of awareness. In other words, because your resources and your markets are so similar, you're very aware of what your competitors can and cannot do. So you have to have a high level of awareness. You have to have motivation as well to compete with someone. If you can avoid competitive rivalry, it's a really good thing. If you think that it's futile to engage in head-to-head competitive behaviors and actions, then you may just not be motivated to engage in that head-to-head competition with someone. You also have to have the ability to engage in competitive behavior. So you have to possess the right resources. So as I mentioned to you in the lectures for chapter 4, if you're going to do a cost leadership strategy, that is hugely a volume strategy. In other words, you're going to expect to have lots and lots of volume, high sales levels, high units. So in order to compete with that cost leadership strategy, you have to have lots and lots of resources. In other words, if you're going to engage in a cost leadership strategy and be competitive, you have to have a large factory and you have to have well-trained workers, okay? And you have to work that. If you don't have the large facility, you're going to have to go out and get the facility, and that's going to take capital for you, okay? So if you can't go out and get the capital, if you can't go out and get the building, you don't have the ability to compete, okay? Resource dissimilarity, the more dissimilar the resources, the less likely that you're going to engage in really aggressive head-to-head competition. The more similar resources, the more likely you'll engage in that head-to-head competition, the competitive behaviors, and the competitive actions. And eventually you're going to have to respond, okay? If you just allow someone to take market share and just nibble away at your market share time and time again, it will lead to a failure of your company. So you do eventually have to take action. So it's a timing thing as well, okay? So again, just to kind of sum up with competitive rivalry, that's the ongoing action and response sequence. They do something, you respond, they respond to your response because your response is an action, okay? So it's kind of like the OODA loop that I mentioned to you earlier. Companies have to analyze and understand the competitive rivalry and understand the motivation for your competitors to engage in that head-to-head competition. So remember that action is a strategic or tactical action that the firm takes to build or defend a competitive advantage. A competitive response, you're taking that to counter the effects of your competitor's competitive action. So before we leave this chapter, I want to talk to you about strategic actions and tactical actions, because a lot of folks confuse tactics and strategy. So the difference is this: if it requires you to commit a lot of organizational resources, it is a strategic action or a strategic response. If it's a market-based move and you're fine-tuning your strategy, then that's a tactic. It's a tactical action or a tactical response. Here's the best way that I can describe this for you. So you know my background, I spent a lot of years working for the Small Business Development Center, and a fairly common request was people wanted help in developing a marketing plan for their business. So we would go through the whole gamut of explaining to them what a marketing plan is, and eventually, once we got through that process, they would say, okay, so where do I advertise? And how much is it going to cost me? Those things aren't strategy. Where you advertise and how much you pay to advertise, they're not strategies. They're tactics, okay? The marketing plan is a strategic action, but the individual advertisements that you place or the individual things that you advertise, those are tactics. So really, quite frankly, strategic action is high level. Tactical is at the grassroots level. It is the stuff that you do. I'm going to give you a resource in case you're interested. If you're a marketing major, you might already be familiar with this, but it's J. Conrad Levinson. The name of the book is Guerrilla Marketing, and there's a whole series of books, but J. Conrad Levinson really is about tactical marketing. Okay, guerrilla marketing is like guerrilla warfare. And for me, from my generation, I think about the Sandinistas in Nicaragua back during the 1980s. That was engaging in jungle warfare. It's a tactical directed strike and then a retreat. Okay, it's very, very tactical. So I'll put up a link for you in the description of this video, and I hope that y'all have a great day.